Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the astrology report for the week commencing the 5th of June, and I'll be outlining some of the key aspects and transits taking place during this week and giving an overview of what it all means. Before I do that, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control our lives. It gives us a framework to help us understand what is unfolding around us. It helps us to recognise where the key opportunities for growth are at this time and the kind of lessons we can be seeking to learn at this time. But for anything to actually change or for us to actually grow from the astrology, it requires our participation in the process, which means that we need to be taking action in our own lives, and action aligned with or guided by wisdom, so that we don't just end up fulfilling kind of egoic desires at the expense of personal growth. Now, in terms of the aspects this week, I'll begin with the moon's transit as usual. We start with the moon in her home sign of Cancer, so this is a time where the emotions may be particularly strong, so it's important to kind of be in touch with them and allow them to flow, but at the same time make sure we don't drown in them. And it may be a time when we may feel the desire to kind of retreat for a bit and to recharge. On Thursday, the moon will enter Leo, so this is a time when we may feel the need to kind of shine or to express ourselves and work on our self-expression. And it's also a time where we may feel in a rather creative mood. On Sunday, the moon will enter Virgo, so this is a time where we may feel that kind of drive to work on our or establish some sense of order in our environment. So it's maybe a time where we work on daily tasks, and it's also a time of working on physical and mental well-being and pursuing whatever course of action or working on whatever tasks that will bring us a greater sense of well-being. Before on Tuesday she enters Libra, and this is a time when we feel that desire to kind of reach out to people, to build bridges, and to be more tactful in terms of how we communicate with other people, and we may feel a desire to try and achieve more harmony in our lives. Now, in terms of other aspects this week is quieter compared to last. We've still got 3 days this week where there's key action taking place. The first is on Friday, so this is when Mercury will be exactly sextile to Uranus in Taurus. So this aspect is between Mercury, the lower mind, and Uranus, the higher mind. So with it being a sextile, we have an opportunity to bring the intellect or the left brain into alignment with the higher mind or the higher intuition. Because Uranus is generally seen as a higher octave of Mercury. They're similar functions but at different levels of experience. Mercury is more like the ego or the personality, or the more human side, if you like. Uranus is about the mind at the soul level. It's about breaking free of attachments to the past. It's breaking free of anything which ties us to the status quo, as it were, and it's about awakening to a deeper level of reality. With Uranus in Taurus at this, for the next few years, the kind of areas that we're being asked to awaken to and to look deeper into is our relationship with resources, relationship with money, and how we define worth, whether that's our own individual worth or how we value material resources. And it's also about seeking to achieve a more humanitarian perspective on things. It's looking at the broader picture and seeing how can we use our resources in a way that doesn't just benefit ourselves but benefits other people. How can we achieve more with less, and how can we seek to learn to share the resources and work or utilise resources in communities rather than just for personal gain. So with Mercury sextile to Uranus, this is an opportunity for the rational mind or the left brain logic to come into alignment with this higher vision coming in through Uranus, or this deeper understanding of the resources. So it's bringing or reprogramming the left brain, if you like, to be willing to embrace change and to change the way we perceive things so we understand it at a deeper level. On Sunday, we've got 2 changes taking place. We have Venus moving from her home sign of Taurus into Gemini. So with Venus in Gemini, we may find that we kind of value a lot more mental stimulation. It's maybe a time where we kind of value that social energy, that kind of building connections between people. So this is a time when with Venus in Gemini, it may feel like this is a good time where we just instinctively decide to start networking, or to try and link up with people from different ideas, and to kind of create social connections with people. But one of the things we do need to be careful of with Venus in Gemini is if we allow fear of commitment to come in. So Gemini is often seen as a bit of a social butterfly, but if we do have commitments, it's important that we honour them. But at a higher level, Venus in Gemini is about having that freedom to interact with different people, also giving each other the freedom to interact, and rather than trying to control people, it's about giving one another the freedom to explore, to interact with different groups without any kind of judgment or ill feeling about it. And it's about understanding that if we learn to connect with people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, and to kind of have that open curiosity towards one another rather than some kind of self-righteousness or judgment, we can kind of learn to create networks of people, or to connect networks of connections with people that allow us to understand different walks of life, and to have a more mental stimulation and mental connection with people, rather than just being about personal resources, as it were. On the same day, Vesta is moving from Aries into Taurus. So with Vesta moving into Taurus, this is a time of kind of devotion towards building or creating a stable bedrock or stable foundation for projects that we're working on. So when Vesta was in Aries, the commitment was to self, if you like, and to creating or working on projects which are for our own sake. But with Vesta moving into Taurus, this is now more about creating stability in our lives, making sure that the projects that we're working on, or whatever we're committed to, is built on rock rather than sinking sand, if you like. But in the process of becoming more grounded through establishing solid foundations and creating firm material bases to allow us to better help other people in the process, we need to be mindful that we don't become materialistic, or we don't become inflexible about how we do things. And so it's important that we don't allow stubbornness to creep in, or any possessiveness. But with Vesta in Taurus, this is an ideal time for us to work on building solid foundations for any projects we're either working on at the moment or want to establish, but need to create the right environment to begin with. So Vesta in Taurus is about stability, is about having that stable bedrock that allows projects to reach their full potential or reach their full growth. Because without the foundations in place, any project will inevitably collapse under its own weight if there isn't a solid foundation to what we're seeking to work on. So it's having those foundations in place. And on the same day, the Sun will be square to Neptune exactly. So the square between the Sun and Neptune is a reminder to, I guess, allow a bit more space into the sense of who we are. It's to move beyond just an egoic perspective of who we are, and allow the more spiritual side of our nature to be incorporated. It's also about, Neptune is all about that being open completely. So it's about that wide open nature, that capacity to have unconditional love and compassion. So whereas Gemini is all about the mental side of things, and it's all about labels. So one of the things this aspect may prompt us to do, or ask us to look at, is to learn to dissolve the labels that we attach to ourselves, or how we seek to define ourselves, which is the ego trying to define us. Because that kind of way of defining ourselves puts us into boxes, or creates a box around us that limits the potential of who we are. Because when we define ourselves by narrow labels, it limits the potential of what we can achieve, because the labels cause us to see ourselves in a very limited kind of way. It's about moving beyond those labels, dissolving the need to define ourselves in any one way or another. It's letting go of mental attachments, and it's letting go of the defining ourselves by, so learning to realise that we're not who we think we are. It's a bit like the old mantra that Rene Descartes came up with, which is obviously ended up limiting us. He said, "I think, therefore I am," but that's basically saying that if we're thinking, then our identity is based around that. Well, no, our thinking is just, it's a habitual habit. It's about analysing things and trying to put them into boxes, but our true nature is pure consciousness. It's not the limitations of the mind or the body. We are ultimately spirit having a human incarnation. It's about learning to redefine who we are from the spiritual perspective rather than basing ourselves on mental labels. And then the last aspects will be on Monday. This will be the Sun opposite Jupiter and in conjunct Saturn. So with the Sun opposite Jupiter, this is the midpoint of the Jupiter retrograde. So Jupiter retrograde in Sagittarius has been all about learning to question the beliefs that we hold, question or reevaluate the worldview that we ascribe to or that we've built, and question whether it's based on truth or not. I mean, beliefs can either empower us or they can destroy us. They can either lift us up or keep us playing small. So this has been a time about reevaluating the beliefs we ascribe to, and also looking at checking whether the projects that we're working on or the organisations we're part of, if you like, are right for who we are. Are we actually being true to our own core moral compass, our own innate sense of ethics and morals, or are we suppressing our own instinctive moral compass in favour of fitting in with the crowd? So this is a time where, with the Sun opposite Jupiter, this is an opportunity to reflect on whether the beliefs that we ascribe to are actually our own, or are they someone else's that we've adopted in order to fit in. But if we're doing something which goes against our fundamental nature, it creates inner conflict, it fuels the ego, and we end up having to adopt beliefs or rationale to justify our position. But if it goes against our core nature, we'll still feel it. So it's important that we let go of attachment to any beliefs that we've been conditioned with but don't actually serve who we are. And on the same day, we have the inconjunct to Saturn. So this aspect is about remembering to incorporate self-discipline. It's about the challenge of resisting the ego's sense of who we are and applying the discipline to ourselves to strip away the dysfunctional habits that we've based our lives around, and to remember that in order for any goal that's worthwhile to be achieved, we have to incorporate discipline, and discipline has to become part of our fundamental nature, has to become part of our character. It's not just something that we try out here and there but we don't commit to. Discipline is an important tool that allows us to stay true to who we are in the process of living in the world, because there's a lot taking place in the world that's designed to try and pressure us to conform to a certain way or to ascribe to the materialistic worldview. But with Saturn going through Capricorn at the time, one of the key lessons that we're learning at this time is that if we want true fulfillment, if we want true freedom, then we have to embrace discipline and responsibility for our lives. And more often than not, we have to be willing to let go of things that we thought that we needed or thought we wanted in order to allow what will really light that fire of passion in us. Because we have to know what we want in order to be able to pursue the goals which will allow us to express our authentic self. So part of the discipline is about being willing to let go of the ego's desire, or willing to overcome the ego's desire for instant gratification and learn the art of delayed gratification, because truly worthwhile goals require our investment of time and energy into them, and there are no shortcuts to achieve them. But when we do achieve them, we feel that sense of lasting fulfillment that no one can take away from us, because we know deep down we didn't take any shortcuts, we did it the right way, and we've become stronger, more resilient individuals as a result, and more disciplined. and we have a stronger capacity to stay true to who we are and resist the temptations like social status, like social acclaim, or fitting in with the status quo, but in the process losing a sense of self at the same time. If we can stay committed to the goals that is truly meaningful and resist any immediate temptations, then we can achieve a true sense of fulfillment, and we can truly become free in the long run through having that responsibility for every facet of our lives. And it's through taking responsibility that we can take charge of our lives and make sure that what we're working on is right for who we are as a person. So I hope that's a useful guide for the astrology this week. As I said, it's a lot quieter compared to recent weeks, but with the sun being a key player this week, a lot of it is about sense of identity or how we're investing our energy, and it's remembering to make sure that our sense of identity isn't limited to just the labels of the ego. Do we seek to remember that we're a soul having a human experience? We're incarnated in a body, but we're not our bodies. The body is the vehicle, if you like. So this is a week of remembering, or making sure that we remember to keep our sense of identity separate from what the ego says. It's learn to ignore the promptings of the ego, to ignore the labels that the ego says and rise above them, and to seek a more expansive sense of self-identity, and one that incorporates grace and understanding, discipline, and the capacity to let go of old labels, let go of attachments, and to surrender. And by bringing discipline, surrender, and understanding together, we can enter a state of flow where we stay true to who we are, we live in the present moment, and whatever we need will be provided at the right time. We just need to stay disciplined and in touch with a higher vision so that we live in alignment with the natural laws rather than fighting against them. So may this coming week bring you many new insights and opportunities for growth. Take care and be blessed.